theory before, but don't be afraid, it's going to get easier eventually. So technically the first 45 or so minutes of the lecture, just please stay with me, try to focus, because I'll be discussing a lot of theoretical aspects of the topic. Then, as I told you, eventually it'll get easier and easier. So we'll come to not that theory heavy stuff. Okay. And again, if you feel that you're missing something or you didn't understand something, feel free to ask. That's perfectly fine. So without further ado, let's start. So again, the title of the lecture is Building Bridges, PR and MR Fundamentals. So this is our fifth lecture, the one before the last. We'll have the last lecture on neuromarketing after your holidays. So let's start with a short warm-up. And now I want you to come up with associations of the word PR, public relations. We already talked about this during our classes. So let's just try to elicit some of the words that are related to PR. You see the first one, it's identity. Yeah, because PR is all about building the identity of your brand. What other associations or what other words could be used to characterize PR? So who's ready? Just go for it. PR associations. Associations with the word PR. Come on.
Communication with the media.
Communication, that's right, absolutely right. Communication, yeah, with the media, not only with the media, but yeah, definitely. So we can maybe even split it into two parts. Yeah, identity, communication, media, just because like again, if we take a look at the first slide, PR and MR, yeah, media relations. So the component of media is really, really important too. Okay, some more.
Maybe позиционирование,
Positioning, definitely positioning. How do you or rather how is your brand positioned in the context of other similar brands or companies, etc., etc. Okay, let's have two more.
promotion, maybe.
Promotion. Not that sure about this one. I would say promotion is more about marketing. I mean, it could be in PR, just I guess not the one that describes it directly. So
Maybe,
we have a
Maybe
sorry.
development.
development. Okay.
I thought of brand awareness. I don't know. Maybe this more about marketing or PR as well.
No, Polina, come on. It's definitely about PR. It's not about marketing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try to remember the distinction between marketing and PR. Who could explain it to everybody in simple terms, just in your own words? Чем отличается маркетинг от пиара? Можно по-русски.
Okay, can I try? Marketing is
Sure.
Yeah, it is. So it's promotion of some companies or organizations, and public relations. It is like how do you see brand or organization, and what do they say about them for public, for example.
Yes, Alice, thank you very much. Yulia, you want to add something?
Ну, я почти то же самое хотела сказать, да, что маркетинг — это больше про продвижение, про то, чтобы там больше людей приходило, ну, с целью там совершать покупки и так далее, и узнавало, а пиар — это больше про выстраивание взаимодействия с аудиторией, позиционирование бренда и все такое.
Да, Юля, спасибо, абсолютно точно. Леся и Юля, вы обе хорошо все объяснили. Давайте уясним раз и навсегда уже, потому что это, наверное, самый важный такой ауткам нашего курса, что маркетинг, как девчонки говорили, это больше про продвижение, про продажи, а пиар, в свою очередь, это больше про идентичность вашу как бренда или как компании, да, то есть, по сути, пиар создает такой благоприятный контекст, да, favorable environment, для продаж, ну, и для всего прочего, да, в принципе, для перцепции вас вашими аудиториями. Yeah, so that's the main distinction. And again, if you were to use the qualitative quantitative distinction, I would say that PR is more qualitative, да, то есть PR у нас более качественный, в то время как маркетинг у нас более количественный, потому что мы используем KPIs, мы используем различные другие методы измерения, and so on and so forth. Okay, good. So now let's try to think together what is the role of the media in PR. So how does PR specialists utilize media? For what, with what aim, etc., etc. Again, if you feel more comfortable giving an answer in Russian, that's fine.
Media, it is a source, an instrument to communicate with your audience or with your potential audience.
Yeah, that's right. So
Some kind of middleman, I would
mhm.
say.
Yeah, as the word medium presupposes, yes, the medium it's more like in Latin, medium means an intermediary, yeah, someone that stands between you and someone or something else. Yeah, то есть проводник. Okay, so we'll be talking for sure in more depth about what the role of the media in PR is, because the role in one word is really, really crucial. And talk about things what a particular PR specialist should take into consideration when making a particular communicative decision. So the next slide will elaborate on that a little bit on this question. So we typically associate PR with 8 C's. Yeah, it's in English. In Russian, that's not gonna work, unfortunately, but in English, as you can see, it works perfectly. So 8 C's. The first C, that is the center of all other C's, around which all the other C's are structured, is communication. So remember, yes, PR is about communication. Now, talking about the requirements for the communication, that is what kind of communication is expected from a PR specialist. First and foremost, the communication has to be clear, ясно и понятно. Yeah, so it should not leave room for misinterpretation. If you know that something could be perceived maybe in an alternative way, then you need to make sure that your communication is clear enough to prevent that. Second one is correct. Well, correct is mostly about fact checking. It's mostly about backing up your statements with some statistical data, or just in general, some accurate, correct data. Next one is concrete. Yeah, конкретный, just like in Russian. So make sure, this is why I'm criticizing you often, yeah, because I'm asking you just be concrete, go straight to the point. So this is one of the most important requirements for communication and PR. Yeah, you have to be very concrete. You have to be straight to the point, which is also about, I'm gonna jump to the next one, concise. Concise is лаконично. So make sure you're concise. Make sure you don't go off on tangents, because this is really distracting, and this is not something that contributes to good and efficient communication. So the requirement to be concise is also very important. Complete. So don't leave any blanks. Don't leave any gray areas, because people will interpret differently. Journalists, again, because we'll be talking about this, PR specialists work with journalists and other media actors that disseminate information on a regular basis. So make sure you don't leave any room for, again, for misinterpretation. Yeah, it has to be, your communication has to be very complete. Coherent. Coherent means последовательный. So my communication has to be coherent, because if you say one day you say one thing, the next day you say another thing, etc., it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. Again, as a PR specialist, you're working on the image of your brand. So the image of your brand, we already talked about this during our first class. It has to be really coherent. Да? То есть у вас должна быть цельная, последовательная идентичность бренда. It has to make sense. And this is also reflected in communication. And finally, courteous and considerate, I group those C's together because they are technically I wouldn't say synonyms, but they are very, very similar. So courteous means like уважительное, considerate, не знаю, не могу перевести, considerate это like a considerate person is a person who takes other POVs, alternative views into consideration. Yeah. Again, why so? Because you're going to be working with fully different audiences. I'm not just talking about general politeness because this goes by default. Yeah, you have to be polite. You have to be, again, courteous and considerate. So courteous and considerate, they shift our focus towards the diversity of our audiences. That our audience are going to be very different with different values from different walks of lives, from different backgrounds. So taking all of those factors into consideration is a must for PR specialists. Yeah. So you cannot be sexist, you cannot be racist, you cannot be homophobic, you cannot be transphobic. What like anything phobic, anything that shows even a slight degree of discrimination and of hatred, yeah, hate speech, etc., etc. This is prohibited. Yeah, you have to be again very courteous and considerate. So those 7 principles are the core of good communication and PR. So now we will move on to so-called race model, which emphasizes the strategic vision of your brand. Just let me take. Okay, so it's not a surprise by you, and it should not come as a surprise to you that public relations is a process. As you can see in this diagram, yeah, this process is circular. It starts with research, then through action and communication, it goes to evaluation, and then it goes back to research. So basically, what you do is you're constantly working on your KPIs, you're constantly trying to improve your results, etc., etc. So what those 4 letters stand for? Here we go. R stands for research. So research, what research should focus on? Those are just general guidelines. You can elaborate on this model in more depth. So we just need to, understand the idea of how the race model works in PR. So research, you focus your research on your TAs, target audiences, yeah? Then you try to identify communication problems, yeah? What is it you're struggling with, or the company rather, yeah? Because in PR, you would typically represent a company, a brand, or whatever. What communication problems the brand or the company is struggling with. And what, sorry for a spelling mistake, it has to be R and I should be swapped. It's not, it has to be environment. And what environment are you going to be functioning in? Yeah, like structural factors. Once you're done with the research part, you move on to the action part, which consists of planning. So you have to have a like PR plan or communicative plan, да, коммуникационный план, a plan коммуникационных деятельностей, so names may vary, schedule too. So all of those actions that you're going to be taking should be tied or linked to particular dates. And finally, you think of the course of actions, yeah, what you're going to be doing. Then moving on to C, communication. So once you are done with your plan, yeah, once you have, your course of actions, you need to think of media channels. Yeah, what media channels you'll be using. Again, this is based on the R part, on the research part. Yeah. So this is based on your TA. This is based on communication problems, environment, etc., etc. What messages you'll be transferring or transmitting. And another very important component is diversification. So different messages, different channels will be utilized for communication with different audiences. It doesn't happen like this, like you just came up with the course of action, which is going to be, what do we call it? Is it like cookie cutlery or something? Трафаретный, да? It doesn't work. It's not going to work. So you try to diversify, yeah, depending on the segments of your TA. So you're going to be diversifying your messages, channels, and so on and so forth. And once this campaign is done, yeah, RAC, tick, 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 you move on to evaluation. So evaluation is concerned with measurement. Yeah. Perhaps you set the KPIs before you plan a particular campaign. So you're trying to track the KPIs to see if you have implemented your KPIs. You also collect feedback. Feedback is really important. Again, as I told you, PR is more qualitative. Да, то есть он более качественный. Таким образом, фидбэк, отзывы людей, да, в принципе, что они говорят в комментариях или каких-то других формах, it's crucial. It's of crucial importance because feedback gives you the vision of how you can improve. Yeah, again, I refer to the diagram, to the table. Evaluation leads to new research. Yeah, so to a new problem, trying to solve new problems. Okay, so now let's move on to the disciplinary differences between PR, MR, and GR. So briefly, PR stands for public relations. You all know this. MR stands for media relations, and GR stands for, sorry, it's not media relations. That's a typo. It has to say government relations. So yeah, I'm just gonna change it later. So PR, the definition of PR is the process of management, public perception, or identity. So you remember, I told you during the first lecture that your brand or your company's or your client's identity is a matter of public perception. It's not what you think about yourself, rather it is what others think about you. This is really important to understand. And thus, taking this definition of public perception into consideration, you understand that the process of management public perception is basically a process of managing or of management of public communication. Yeah, how you're trying to, shape this public perception through communication. Then moving on, MR media relations is about strengthening relationships with media organizations and media actors. For example, influencers. We'll be talking about influencers today too, because they are very, very important actors in the contemporary media landscape. And ultimately, GR, again, is government relations. Here, G stands for government. There was a typo. Also known as public affairs. So it is about representation of the interests of your client on the political level and communication with politicians or NGOs. NGOs are non-governmental organizations. Yeah, то есть негосударственные структуры. And as an example of this could be lobbying. Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit later. So those three are perhaps main disciplinary fields within PR, but it's important to know that PR may also include so-called IR, internal relations. If you work in an organization and you might be responsible for IR, internal relations, that is how the employees of the company perceive the company, what they say about the company, and so on and so forth. Crisis communication is another important aspect due to the fact that our course is basically, an amalgamation of two courses. It's PR on the one hand and SMM on the other. We unfortunately do not have that much time to talk about crisis communication. But just so you know, crisis communication is also very, very important field or maybe important sphere of PR. Also CR, community relations. So here it's a little bit difficult to draw this line because in marketing we also have community managers. Yeah, so people who are responsible for the community. So it's basically the same thing, to be honest. Maybe CR and PR is slightly more different because it concerns not only the community that is directly related to the brand, but also some other communities. Yeah, and talking about the communities, we'll be talking about the stakeholders. Just a sec. Is everything okay so far? No questions? So if you have any questions, that would be now. It would be the best time to ask them. But perhaps we haven't discussed anything that would be theoretically outlandish and really difficult to grasp. So Let's move on. So stakeholders. And stakeholders, the definition of stakeholders is parties that are involved and interested in the company's activities. And we typically classify stakeholders into two groups. The first group is internal stakeholders, as you can see, which includes, here we go, which includes employees, manager, and owners. Whereas external stakeholders, there are more of them, obviously, yeah? And those are suppliers, поставщики, society, government, creditors, shareholders, акционеры, and customers. So PR is basically based, or it rests on the idea of stakeholders, because stakeholders are, as you can see here, yeah, they provide you with information, they provide you with feedback, and most importantly, they provide you with various types of support, including financial, yeah? For example, we are talking about owners or creditors, or maybe shareholders, etc., etc. So when we think about stakeholders in terms of PR, in terms of communication, in terms of public relations, right? We need to understand, again, the idea of diversification or segmentation, right? Because even here we have segmentation. You have two parts, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. So by diversification here, what I mean is that you dedicate a different share, yet different portion of attention, energy, and resources. And by resources, I mean resources in the broad sense, both material and immaterial. So depending on those three things, attention, energy, and resources, you'll try to construct, let's say, different trajectories or different strategies, come up with different strategies for communication with specific stakeholders. Yes, so you understand if it's more again about IR, internal relations, there's going to be one strategy. If it's society, it's another strategy. Government, different strategy, and etc., etc. So now we are done with the first part. Now we are moving on to the most, perhaps the most challenging part. It's not really challenging. Maybe it's just a little bit theory heavy because we'll be covering a lot of concepts. So media relations, and the central piece of this part of the presentation is agenda setting and your POV. But before we move on to this part, I would like to discuss with you media ecosystem. That is, how do you interact as a PR specialist with different media actors, and what type of a relationship is formed? So the first actor would be governmental organizations, NGOs, yeah, non-governmental organizations, and groups of interest, so-called groups of interest. And in case of GR, we have lobbying, лоббизм. Слышали, наверное, такой термин. Кто бы мог прояснить? Ну, тут, наверное, по-русски будет проще. What is lobbying? Что такое лоббизм?
Ну, это те, которые продвигают определенные идеи, то есть они поддерживаются и их продвигают.
Кто продвигает и где продвигает?
Ну, видимо, это какие-то частные организации, которые, ну, может быть, пытаются влиять на какие-то более важные аспекты, может быть, события, там, ну, в государстве, например.
Олеся, абсолютно точно. На политические решения. То есть, опять же, как я говорил, GR, Government Relations, it's a subfield of PR, то есть это подраздел пиара. По сути, это те же пиарщики. У нас просто пиарщики, у которых, ну, например, у меня магистр политических наук, то есть я бы мог, если бы очень захотел работать в GR, правда, меня туда не очень тянет. Но, тем не менее, абсолютно точно. То есть представьте себе, есть какая-то компания, которая преследует какие-нибудь частные интересы. Но самый классический пример – это, например, законодательство, которое связано с курением. Да? То есть есть табачная компания. Ее не устраивает, например, возможность того, что может быть принят закон, который запрещает, там, скажем, курение в каких-нибудь публичных местах. Just let's imagine, да? То есть они обращаются к GR-щику, к специалисту по government relations. Он уже через свои контакты, он пытается влиять на политиков и менять так называемую вот эту policy agenda, да, повестку дня политическую. Безусловно, это не работа не с одним политиком, это работа со многими политиками, с партиями, etc., etc. То есть, по сути, ну, для нас это, может, я думаю, в Восточной Европе это не столь популярно, но в US, да, в США это абсолютно нормальная практика, нормально до той степени, что у них есть соответствующее законодательство о том, как это должно осуществляться. So this is just so you know, yeah, how lobbying works. And in case of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, it could also be lobbying in a sense, but usually it's based on social interest, so-called SI. So social interest, maybe I should have called, because later I'll be using public interest. So yeah, I'm sorry for creating this confusion. So just, you know, social interest and public interest, completely two similar things. Those are interchangeable. Those are synonyms. Those are not different terms. So social interest, SI, or public interest, PI. Yes, what is public interest? It's really simple. What people are interested in, this idea will become even more clear when we move on to agenda. All right, so next one is state media. State media, and by state media, I understand publicly funded media outlets. Yeah, which are not private, because with the private media, it's going to be a slightly different situation. State media, if you want to get published as a PR specialist, as a representative of a company or of a brand in state media, well, in civilized countries, the only thing is the only possible, way to get published is sparking social interest. That is, if your company, if what you do, if your company or the company you represent, if what you do could potentially spark social interest. So other than that, state media cannot be bribed. You cannot pay money to get published there, because this is prohibited by law, right? I mean, in civilized countries, again, I'm not talking about, there are different countries with different legislation. I'm mostly talking about European countries, US, etc., etc. Next one is private media. So yeah, state media is really challenged by private media, and in certain aspects, private media is even better for PR specialists, especially in countries with high media freedom index. Yeah, so private media usually are even more interesting to people. So this is, again, a really good outlet for you. And here again, it's possible to get covered just based on SI, social interest, but usually in most of the cases, it would include paid promotion. And by paid promotion, I mean so-called advertorials or branded content. So what is an advertorial? Just in one word, an advertorial is, how do I put it? This is a type of content, branded content, that also has some value to the reader or to the user. So my question to you is, what is the difference from puff pieces? Puff pieces, по-русски заказные статьи. То есть я хочу, чтобы вы поняли и артикулировали разницу между вот этими вот advertorials или брендированным контентом и заказными статьями. Да, Маш, давайте.
Ну, условно, наверное, заказная статья — это когда, ой, вот есть такой бренд, он такой хороший, такой классный, и как бы, ну, просто нахваливание, а когда это брендированный контент, то это уже какое-то более настоящее мнение, то есть либо это просто реклама, типа вот такой-то бренд, дайте промокод, условно. Либо это какой-то обзор, например, когда человек берет и рассказывает настоящее мнение, а не такое, что все классно, все супер, покупайте.
Мгм. Ну, в принципе, да, в принципе, вы правы. Единственное, вот это настоящее мнение, вопрос аутентичности, не знаю, сколько его в брендированном контенте. Все-таки
Ну,
там
даже
то,
не настоящее, а просто как бы свое мнение, типа вот если тут есть косяк, то он про это скажет. Вот так вот.
но это, я понимаю, о чем вы говорите, да, это если вы там у инфлюенсеров каких-то берете обзоры, ну, да, возможно, это не обязательно всегда так будет, даже вам скажу, реже так бывает. Но идея сама верна, в том смысле, что заказные статьи, да, то есть, so, as Masha said, you just write about how cool you are, how you're, what kind of a perfect company or business you are, etc., etc. But what is important to understand, I'll never get tired repeating that successful brands, successful companies are based on, you know, on their audiences. It's how well they know their audiences. People are not stupid. People understand this if something is a puff piece. Yeah, они понимают, что что-то заказная статья. So they just, okay, so this brand is ABC. They're just not interested. They are not interested to, I'm sorry, in reading about the advantages of your brand. Advertorial, on the other hand, it meets at the intersection of what you want to say and what your audiences want to hear. That's why I emphasize a very important aspect of advertorial, which is value. So your advertorial has to bring value to your readers or just in general to your audiences. So Masha gave a good example of, let's say, a promo code. Why not? That's value. Another type of value could be informational value. Yes, we provide some information, especially if your brand is positioned somewhere in the field of so-called social responsible brand. So maybe you're trying to tackle a particular social or I know any other kind of problem. So this again directly leads to SI, social interest. Yeah, so it's not just boasting about how cool you are, which puff pieces are about. It's more nuanced, yeah, and it's more it's more about your audiences. So this is how it works with private media. Moving on to news agencies and journalists. So with news agencies and journalists, we communicate via press releases and so-called pitches. We'll talk about pitches at the end of our lectures. So my question to you is, how do PR specialists and journalists benefit from each other? You as media specialist, you must understand this. То есть какую пользу друг от друга пиарщики получают и журналисты? Почему у них такой симбиоз получается? Кто может ответить?
Maybe because of journalists can like move ideas of PR specialists and PR specialist maybe he can like take some information and show it in a beautiful way for journalists. So it like almost well done content for him or she.
Well, yeah. Well, definitely PR specialists could make content better. They rarely do this, but what you were right about is that PR specialists benefit from journalists because journalists disseminate information, да, они распространяют эту информацию. Хорошо, а какую пользу журналисты получают от пиарщиков? Как вам кажется?
Может, банально финансирование за счет рекламы.
Ага, но в этом смысле, я понимаю, Маша, о чем вы говорите, ну, опять же, возвращаясь к этой идее advertorial branded content, да, если компания заказывает такого рода контент, поэтому делает и денег стоит. В этом плане, да. А если не рассматривать финансовый аспект, да, Юль.
Ну, я могу предположить, что, получается, журналист как бы пишет, создает контент, а пиарщик его как бы двигает, продвигает или там говорит, как сделать так, чтобы его продвинуть. Ну, что-то такое.
Ну, мы с вами сейчас говорим о пиарщике, журналисте из разных организаций. То есть не обязательно пиарщики, которые работают в медиа. Мы представим пиарщик, который на компанию работает, и просто журналист. Ну, хорошо, давайте, в чем заключается работа журналиста?
Может, это связано с каким-то формированием определенного мнения у аудитории через журналиста
Через
непосредственно?
Нет,
Да.
так это понятное дело, но мы уже разъяснили, пиарщики, они много получают бенефитов от журналистов, а вот журналисты от пиарщиков какие benefits
Они получают
получают?
материал.
О, Полин, спасибо вам большое. Конечно, они получают материал. Работа журналиста в чем заключается? Искать информацию. И поиск информации — это просто activity, который требует пота, крови, и вообще это страшно даже представить. Поэтому пиарщики очень облегчают жизнь журналистам. Они такие обращаются, когда не хочешь написать про то, не хочешь написать про это. Поэтому, в принципе, те из вас, кто будут в пиаре работать, всегда поддерживайте хорошие отношения с журналистами. И, ну, в принципе, хороший пиарщик, ну, CV пиарщика, как мы любим говорить, это связи с медиа. Да, это с какими медиа-аутлетами, с какими журналистами у вас есть связи. Поэтому накапливайте вот эту базу с самого начала. Поэтому да, особенно если у вас хороший журналист, ну, говоря о других каких-то преимуществах, вы можете получать ну, если вы журналист, вы можете получать от компании какие-то benefits. Вас могут на различные вечеринки, parties, да, приглашать как журналиста и прочее, прочее. Ну, то есть делают вашу сложную журналистскую жизнь слаще и как-то милее и лучше. А вот мне просто интересно, среди вас есть те, кто собирается журналистикой заниматься в будущем? Полина собирается, замечательно. Ну вот, но вы знаете, кстати, говоря о ну, журналисты же классически, да, ненавидят пиарщиков, потому что пиарщики, ну, в принципе, про пиарщиков говорят, что это those are journalists who came to the dark side. Да, это журналисты, которые перешли на темную сторону. Обычно среди пиарщиков очень много журналистов, опять же, по этой же причине, по причине связи с медиа. Но не знаю, вам, может, другие преподаватели рассказывают, какие пиарщики страшные, но вам могу сказать, что в реальной жизни пиарщики и журналисты очень дружат. Потому что им это и тем на руку, и другим на руку. Okay, so now let's move on. So this is how it works with news agencies and journalists. Now moving on to influencers and bloggers. So that influencers and bloggers, yeah, the best case scenario that you can have is just to have collaboration. Yeah, so-called collab. Yeah, especially if you're talking about the niche influencer, about an influencer that doesn't have that many followers. So you as a company, this could, be a win-win situation in a sense that you as a company can benefit from extra coverage, whereas the niche influencer will get some products, will get a PR kit. We'll be talking about this later, etc., etc. But in most of the cases, still, you'll have to pay some money to the influencer. Yeah, which means that the most common type of the relationship is paid promo. Then moving on to the next, those are private media platforms. For example, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. We already talked about this. So there you create content marketing and you do paid advertising. And finally, public, yeah, public or society, whatever. So you influence the public or the society through all of the above possible ways. So the bottom line of this table is that media relations is about balancing between different media channels, messages, and audiences. So now another theoretical framework is media ownership. So in PR, we classify media ownership into four big categories. Those categories are own media, то есть те медиа, которые вам принадлежат, shared, те, с которыми вы делитесь с другими, paid, оплачиваемые, and earned, те, которые вы заслужили сами. So let's talk about each of them separately. Let's start with owned media, which is quite easy to understand because it's about types of media of which you are the owner. For example, your personal website. Yeah. So you are the owner of that. Then moving on to social platforms, those are shared. Yeah. So for example, Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc. All of those social media platforms, they are shared because all brands or companies and all people have equal access to it. Yeah, you're not the only owner. Then moving on to paid. So by paid media ownership, we typically understand advertising. Yeah, like banners, display, endorsement, etc., etc. And earned is particularly important in PR because it is about influencer networks. Again, it's about journalist networks. Yeah, the people you know, the media outlets you know, all of this positive and constructive relationships is what we would call here earned media. Yeah, so to maximize ROI, yeah, return on investment, you need to constantly balance between all four of them. If you work in media relations in MR, this is what you're going to be doing every single day. Yes, switching from one media to another, then to the next one, and etc. etc. And this is, by the way, why I don't work in PR anymore, because I just got sick and tired of that. Moving on to the next slide, the concept of agenda. So agenda in Russian, that would be повестка дня. Agenda, by agenda, we mean, I'm giving you here very simple definition, really easy to understand, things that are considered important and thus spark public or social interest, the FPI or SI. So what is important to understand about the agenda? Just a second. So you're choosing almost as surprise that every day lots and lots of different things happen. The question is, do all of them get covered? And the answer is obviously no. Yeah, only a tiny fraction of happening things get covered by media. And this is what we understand as, or what we know as media agenda. But media agenda is not the only agenda. There is also so-called public agenda, which means what people are interested in. Media agenda is what media is interested in. Public agenda is what public is interested in. And again, you have your own agenda. We can also add a policy agenda. Here are some who missed this. Policy agenda is what governments are interested in. Yeah, usually if we have an intersection of media, public, and government agenda, we have a very trendy topic, some sort of break news. So talking about agenda, it could be influenced by both media coverage and by public interest. So it can work both ways. Let me explain. So if the media covers a particular topic, if this topic becomes a part of agenda, it sparks public interest, right? But vice versa, if the publics are interested in something, then there is this public agenda, and then media are more inclined to cover it. Yeah. So another important thing to understand in PR, we have a term agenda setting, формирование повестки дня, наверное, так по-русски будет. Agenda setting is about the ways of influencing the agenda. And before moving on to those ways, that is, how do we influence the agenda? Let's take a brief look at the hierarchy of agenda. how it works. So I created this myself. That's why it's not very aesthetically pleasing, but I did my best. So roughly the top of news is 20%, yeah, like breaking news and major news. The middle is about 50%, and those are categories, local and global perspectives, etc., etc. And the bottom is about 30%. So the hierarchy of agenda, it means the layers. So you go down every layer, and it means that the topic at the bottom is less interesting than the previous topic. Yeah. So usually if we have breaking news, this is where media focus is concentrated. Yeah. And if we are talking about, for example, a news program or whatever, so every news program will start with breaking news. That's the most important, most current, most trending news. Then we have major news that is concerned with public interest, and then we go down and down with categories such as politics, business, entertainment, perspective, analytical pieces like investigations, human interest stories, routine updates, for example, weather reports, and finally some sort of entertaining content like media trends. Yeah, so this is how it usually works. Um, and again, this is why this is important for a PR specialist is because you need to understand what's trending and what's not. We'll talk in a moment about the saying we have in PR, really cynical one: if it bleeds, it leads. So this is exactly what breaking news is about. The example of breaking news was when the war started. Yeah, it was breaking news in all the affected countries and countries' neighbors. Okay, so now talking about your POV in agenda setting, your as a brand POV or yours as a company. So the first thing is newsjacking. We already talked about newsjacking during our previous lecture. Who can explain what newsjacking is? С вами говорили об этом на прошлой лекции. Newsjacking. What is this strategy? What is this technique? Okay, so newsjacking is when you use a trending piece of content and try to hijack it. That is, try to make use of it. Да, то есть если что-то в тренде, вы пытаетесь влиться в этот тренд. Да, so how can it be done? Yeah. One of the ways is to offer a different angle. Yeah, so for example, people are looking from one POV, but you might have another POV, a different one, which could be, for example, backed up by data. So if you have some data, which also sometimes happens because public relations agencies, they order research services. Yes, they work with research, and maybe you can have some data that might be interesting. Another way is to use your social media account and use this at button, yeah, mention to get covered. Again, remember, journalists, like those days when journalists like to find the information when they went outside and looked for information around, those days are all over. Now journalists are kind of lazy. I'm saying this in the best possible way. I would be lazy too. They're kind of lazy. They just open their computer and they look for what's trending now and what information should get covered. So usually they do this by just browsing through social media. So do not underestimate the power of social media in media relations. So lots of, especially if you're talking, for example, about Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, if you have journalists in your friend list, so this maximizes your chances to get noticed, right? Next one is if it bleeds, it leads. So you understand bleed, like кровь. Если что-то связано с кровью, значит это leads, no, transit, something like this. So it might sound cynical, but it works. Again, if we take a look at the hierarchy, breaking news is usually about something really bloody, about something really terrible, really notorious. So do not underestimate the power of shocking and violent events, scandals, and widely discussed problems. So make sure to have your say. So can anyone give me an example in PR of if it bleeds, it leads? Относительно, например, недавний тоже пример. Ну, как относительно недавний, уже некоторое время он длится. Ну, кто мне может привести пример, как это работает в пиаре?
Я не совсем понимаю, что именно.
Ну, вот это вот if it bleeds, it leads, когда для пиара используются какие-то шокирующие события, скандалы, проблемы, etc., etc.
Ну, предположительно, война в Израиле с последнего.
Ага, и как это в пиаре можно использовать?
Как?
Ну, Кать, вы хорошо говорите, так, есть же такое, вы просто продолжите мысль. Вы просто А сказали, продолжайте, говорите Б.
Ну, сложно сказать, это новостная повестка, в которой рассказывается очень многое и со стороны Израиля, и со стороны Газы, и со стороны, условно, Палестины и так далее. И каждая страна на этом пытается плюс-минус что-то выиграть, но сейчас повестка поворачивается так, что Израиль становится чуть ли не страной-агрессором, хотя по факту, ну, лично я так не считаю, я не знаю, может, есть у кого-то другие мнения в группе, но суть в том, что за счет активных каких-то публикаций в СМИ можно выставить ну, любую ситуацию так, как выгодно какой-то заинтересованной... Не знаю, меня уже не туда понесло, походу.
Да,
Вот.
вас немножко туда понесло,
Да.
вы вас больше с точки зрения политической журналистики, в принципе, объективности новостей. Но да, про что вы говорите, это спиннинг, скорее, в пиаре называется, когда мы пытаемся определенную версию событий создать. Ну вот, смотрю, много рук. Давайте Юля, потом Саша, потом Олеся, потом Даша.
Ну, я бы предположила, что, возможно, еще можно вот воспользоваться, если такой ситуацией, и как бы пропиарить какие-то другие, например, туристические направления. То есть, не знаю, давить на то, что они там будут более безопасны или что-то такое. Вот. Ну, и всякие ценности там.
Юля, хороший пример, только что-то вас в сторону черного пиара какого-то понесло. Ну да, в принципе, да.
Всякие туристические услуги типа там ВНЖ, паспорта, там же много кто в Израиле паспорта получал. Вот, поэтому, ну, возможно...
Ну, в теории, да, но я бы вам как пиарщик не советовал таким заниматься. Но в теории, да, правильный пример. Да, Саш.
I'd just like to add what was said before about the genocide of Palestinian people. That Zara right now had like a big backlash because they had a campaign where they used this, like it could correspond with the events. So the model was dressed like in a new jacket that they tried to promote, and the background was like rubble, imitating traditional wear that Muslims, like the bags they put the dead bodies into, like a sort of mockery of what is going on, and like there is and it's like a big backlash right now because it's crazy that they did it, and it's absolutely shameless and atrocious, and
I'm
shouldn't
just
have been done at all.
guys, I understand. Just let's maybe more focus on. I understand. Yeah, this political agenda
Yeah,
is
it's just the
really.
example of how it could be used in PR. Like they use their position
Yeah, but by
on
company,
the
let
conflict.
me. Yeah, Sasha, thank you. I understand. Let's make an important specification by companies. By companies, let's not get too political here. Yes, Olesya.
Да, наверное, один из примеров это когда происходит, например, ну, что-то связанное с насилием, и, например, кто-то там начинает активно продавать, используя эту информацию, там, например, какие-нибудь системы безопасности для дома или там оружие, если это касается США, например, да, ну вот что-то такое,
Да,
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 то есть
хорошо, Лесь, да, очень хороший пример. Но мы с вами об этом еще в контексте нейромаркетинга поговорим. Мы будем там рассматривать пирамиду Масла и Фрейда. Да, Даш, давайте.
So I think that black PR could be used during the Ukrainian war, and I noticed also that it it was really often like I don't know not event but phenomena when Ukrainian companies had their PR campaigns around the war, like please be empathic about us and buy our products. And I guess that's at the beginning it was okay, but now it feels like speculating, and that's why it seems like black PR rather than their PR of their product, just because of, I don't know, useful for the society, product, services, etc.
Yes, that's right. So this is actually the example I had in mind, because it's not only about Ukrainian producers and products, but in general, for example, here in Lithuania, companies by showing support to Ukraine, by actually publicly stating that they support Ukraine, and by saying that, for example, if you buy, our products, I know 5% or whatever, any other amount of money will be dedicated to Ukraine, the Ukrainian army. So this is how it works. Like if it bleeds, it leads. Making use, which is again, it raises a lot of ethical concerns. Not maybe in this particular examples, but as you guys perfectly gave really good examples of when it could get a little bit too unethical, right? Катя, вы хотите добавить что-то?
Я уже, мне кажется, мысль потеряла тоже. Мне Юля навела просто на одну идею по поводу, как вы сказали, черный ее пиар, но в контексте того же конфликта вот Израиль-Палестина, модель Белла Хадид, она же урожденная палестинка, и, получается, в модельном бизнесе началась повсеместная ее отмена. И то есть, по сути, это все, ну, как бы выражено именно на фоне того, что она поддержала Палестину в данном конфликте. И, по сути, модельные там дома, какие-то компании стали выражать свое публичное мнение, в принципе, на фоне всей этой ситуации, конкретно, как они думают, там, культура отмены началась и так далее. И какая-то у меня была красивая подводка, но, честно, я уже мысль упустила.
Очень хороший, да, спасибо, Катя. Это тоже очень интересный пример. Тут это вопросы, конечно, больше пиарщику Беллы. Но опять же, тут не столько про поддерживание сторон. It's not really about picking sides. Просто, ну, опять же, если кто-то будет работать в пиаре, мне кажется, я уже говорил, и ну вот, что меня, например, тоже немножко в пиаре напрягало, но это it just goes by default, что иногда какие-то свои личные убеждения нужно выносить за скобки, что называется, да. Ну, у нас просто работа такая, если вы в пиаре будете работать, это, ну, пиарщиков серыми кардиналами называют, да, то есть вы с себя снимаете вот эту всю, как бы, личину, и вы какой-то такой, как это в X-менах, да, бывает, женщина, которая меняет формы, такой полиморф, как полиморф тоже меняется форма. Yes, but this is a minus, drawback of working in PR. All right, so talking about in general the anatomy of a good story, because PR is definitely about storytelling. So when I was asking you about your associations of the word PR, nobody mentioned storytelling, but storytelling, this aspect is also really, really important. So what a good story that you will try to pitch should include? First and foremost, it needs to provide value. We already talked about this a bit. Next thing, it has to be newsworthy. Да, то есть в вашей истории должен быть конкретный инфоповод. And it has to be timely. Это важно, потому что ваше задание будет, ну, потом об этом поговорим, не организовать ивент, скорее подготовить такую модель ивента. Then it needs to have the right angle of pitching, that is POV, yeah? So your POV should be clearly stated and articulated in the story. And finally, it needs to correspond if you're gonna be pitching your story to a particular media outlet, it has to correspond with the media channel's vibe and its audience. Oopsie. Now on influencer marketing 101, so we still have half an hour. Okay, I guess it's perfect timing. So yeah, so far we've been talking about media, so now we'll focus on influencers as very particular media actor. And why it is so important is presented here. Yeah, numbers speak louder than words. If you take a look at the influencer marketing market size, which was, for example, 1.7 billion in 2016, now it is $21.1 billion dollars in 2023, which is a lot. Even if you compare 2023 with 2022, in 2022 it was 16.4 billions. So the difference is of almost $5 billion, which shows just extremely rapid growth of influencer marketing market size. And talk about the most common channels. As you can see, the leader is TikTok, 55.5%. Instagram is slightly behind, but all around 5% difference. When Facebook and YouTube is the least popular. So why we as PR specialists and marketing specialists, why should we consider influencer marketing seriously? Is this data is a little bit all 2016, but you remember even at that time, the market was 1.7 billion. So now the numbers would be even higher. Yeah. So it increases the budget. It is the fastest growing online customer acquisition method. Yeah, the way to attract customers. Most cost effective online customer acquisition method. Yeah, which means it pays back. That the money you invest, you get this money back. And also quality of customers acquired through influencer marketing is better according to more than a half of the respondents. So now talking about the types and tiers of influencers, which is also important to understand and most important, the value for your brand. This is definitely going to be on the test. So the smallest influencers are called nano influencers with the followage of the followage is really I can't tell you for sure because there are no universal numbers. Yeah, the followage put the asterisk here. It depends on the size and depends on depends on the country, which is also important to understand. Like in Belarus, the numbers will be there will be one numbers and another country another numbers and etc. etc. In Lithuania, the numbers, for example, would be lower because it's a way smaller country than, for example, the US or other countries. But still, 1 to 10K, and similar ones would be micro influencers with a slightly, well, not slightly, way higher followage, but still considered micro, from 10 to 50K. What is the value for brand of nano and micro influencers? And first and foremost, it's content creation. Because if we talk about macro and mega influencers, they're really reluctant to create content. Nano and micro influencers are way more willing to create content. Obviously, they have higher engagement rate. Why so? Because they have very, very concentrated audiences, right? So really loyal and really engaged audiences. Also, nano and micro influencers are good for niche markets. Yeah, if your product or service is really niche, so you'd rather go for nano or micro influencers than macro or mega influencers. And obviously, they present better value for money. Again, if we take a look at the next slide, bigger does not mean better. This is, as you can see, data from 2023. And you see 39% and 30% of brands tend to choose nano influencers and micro influencers, while celebrity influencers, for example, only 12%. Well, this is understandable because um, well, yeah, there's also mid-tier influencers, yeah, between micro and macro, which best of both worlds combine some values of micro influencers and some not values or benefits or value for brand and benefits of macro influencers. So macro and mega influencers are from 500K to a million and over. So they obviously have broader reach and better visibility just because they have bigger audiences. Lots of people follow them. And they're really good for brand image. Yeah, creating your brand image because people associate you with a celebrity for recognition and obviously for status. So again, it depends. It depends on what are yours as a brand's needs. Do you want to drive sales? Do you want to drive engagement? Or do you want to, construct this brand image? But again, take into consideration that macro and mega influencers are really, really, really expensive, like insanely expensive. And finally, we can also discuss another category where, well, we could classify them as influencers still. Bloggers and bloggers. Yeah, and follow, which depends on the size. What kind of benefits can the brand get from bloggers and bloggers? Well, first and foremost, they have loyal audiences. The content they create and present is more informative and it offers deeper cuts. And also, perhaps most importantly, they have an enduring value, which is content. Yeah, they create content and you'll have this, content for forever. So those are Lithuanian influencers in 2021. Tagger, software Tagger is used because you understand there could be a lot of potential problems with influencers. For example, you aren't sure if the people that follow them are real. Yeah, so what to do in this case? So in this case, agencies, media agencies usually have subscription to Tagger. So Tagger is software that is used for influencer marketing. And one of the things that it offers, by the way, you can request demo if you want to. One of the things that it offers, it lets you check if the followers of a particular influencer are real. Now, PR kits, another important idea I would like to stress, and this is something you'll also need for your next task, for next seminar. So what are PR kits? PR kits are brand products that is sent directly to influencers in a branded package. So here we have an example. I know this is some sort of cosmetics. Yeah, send the fresh future to your loved ones. So this is a visual example of a PR kit. Понимаем, да, это какая-то коробочка с продуктами, с продукцией вашего бренда, которая высылается инфлюенсерам, чтобы они потом это все попромили у себя. So the purposes of that. First and foremost, obviously, advertising and brand representation. Yeah, if you want to associate your brand with a particular influencer, you send them a PR kit. Well, for sure, you communicate with them about this beforehand. And if you think that when influencers, receive their PR kits and they're like, "Wow, such a surprise! I never expected this." This is bullshit. They always know what they receive. Maybe the contents are not specified. Да, то есть, возможно, они не знают, что внутри, ну, такое тоже очень редко бывает, потому что всегда, кто там знает, там откроется там, не знаю, бомба или еще что-то. Но сам факт, по ссылке он всегда оговаривается заранее, понятное дело. Awareness, yeah, it raises awareness, your brand awareness, highlights new releases, which is also a very smart decision. For example, you release something and you have a new release of something, a new collection of something, for example, cosmetics, yes? And you send it to influencers. This is a really, really good way to promote new produce, to promote new collection. Very smart. Recommendations. Yeah, and by the way, people might be skeptical about this, but I can tell you for sure that even in my practice, I had such cases when influencers really like the produce and the recommendations were, genuine because they really liked it. It happens very rarely, and usually with niche influencers or nano-like influencers, but it does happen. And finally, brand integrated communication. This is more for rich brands. Yeah, so you want to reach your audiences through as many channels as possible. Okay, so no questions about this part? No, great. And now the last part, the easiest part, I can see we have 15 minutes, so this is exactly the amount of time we need. Actually, I'm really happy that we'll be able to cover all the contents of the lecture because it's a little bit on the bulkier side. It's still great. So this part is directly concerned with your seminar task, which is gonna be not the next seminar, but this seminar after the holidays. Next week we'll have our last seminar this year. Yeah, and then you'll have your holidays, and then we'll renew our course. So your seminar task is going to be press conference, and the formulation of the task is the following. Your task is to prepare for a press conference as your brand representatives and effectively pitch a promotional event you are to organize. So again, to highlight the parts, the format of the seminar is going to be a press conference, пресс-конференция. And what you'll be doing during it, you'll be pitching your promotional event. Yes, you'll need to come up with the event idea. Нужно будет придумать идею ивента. So this seminar task is the most important of all because it is worth double points, not 5 points, but 10 points. Yeah, out of all the total of 25 points for the seminars. And it's going to consist of several parts. First and foremost, I expect you to create a Facebook event for educational purposes. То есть обязательно укажите в описании for educational purposes, то у меня уже студенты говорили, как такое возможно, мы обманываем людей, and et cetera, что создается ивент, которого на самом деле не будет. Но мы это создаем с все-таки адекватными намерениями, мы это делаем для учебы. So this is the first part, yeah, with all the visuals, yeah, so your Facebook event needs to have visuals and needs to have a program. Программа тоже должна быть. Next one is pitch. What is a pitch? I'll tell you in a couple of moments, and a PR kit. PR kit, voila, this part, yeah? So you'll need to come up with the idea of your PR kit, and a huge plus would be if you add photos of your PR kit. Но опять же, за отсутствие фотографий, понятное дело, это будет имитация, но за отсутствие фотографий я не буду ставить баллы, но имейте в виду, что для экзамена вам в любом случае нужно будет это подготовить. Поэтому если вы сделаете это сейчас, вам потом просто не нужно будет это делать перед экзаменом. Тут уже у кого как получается. Next point will be writing a press release. Again, I'll explain to you what this is. Then during the presentation, you'll have to pitch your promotional event, yeah, during the seminar. The duration is 10 minutes plus 5-minute Q&A. Q&A is an important part because also all of you will have to, то есть, опять же, чтобы не было вопросов, каждый человек, это не группа касается, что один вопрос на группу, это каждый человек. One question to another brand. Think of which media outlet you represent. То есть, вам придется также немножко подыграть и представить себя как представителя какого-то медиа и на основе этого задать вопрос другой группе. Одного вопроса достаточно. Если каждый подготовит один вопрос, хороший вопрос, не дурацкий какой-нибудь, тогда then you'll get 1 point for the question. Yeah, so I'm asking you to upload this as an archive before the seminar. Вы увидите, отдельная тема в Moodle называется Press Conference, создан форум. Значит, в форуме создаете ветку, называете ее своим брендом и загружаете архив. И для того, чтобы задать вопросы, посмотрите другие сабмишины, да, чтобы знать, о чем спрашивать. Okay, so если что, вот описание задания, но в Moodle еще прописано отдельно в самом форуме, что нужно загрузить. Okay, so now let's move on to Далее.
Yes, sorry. There was something about we need to print assessment.
This is for HR students because we have face-to-face seminars that you all be using digital assessment sheets. So you don't need to print anything because we all are in different locations. So it wouldn't make sense to print anything. Yeah. Okay. So talking about event planning and management. So here I classified it into two categories. The first column, as you can see, is what it must include. And the second one is just recommended. So what it must include, your target audience and your niche. Yeah, so what kind of event it is and what your audience is. Then obviously venue. Venue is another name for a place. Yeah, location, time, activities, and scheduling. Publicity. Yes, so everyone. Ну, тут я уже говорю не про ваш ивент, который вы будете создавать, это в принципе, да, как в пиаре мы занимаемся ивент-менеджментом. Поэтому дело вам не нужно будет рекламировать ваш ивент. You just create a Facebook event and that's it. Yeah, so here we are kind of going deeper into that. Those are not the requirements. So yeah, publicity. Yeah, media and press releases and ads, definitely. Also, when you create and organize an event, you need to have creatives and supporting materials. Distribution across platforms. What platforms can be used? There are different niche platforms, and there are different platforms for example, in Lithuania, we have Kas vyksta Vilniuje. Yeah, what's happening in Vilnius, a particular platform that is dedicated to the promotion of the events. Можете привести мне белорусский пример, чтобы я знал? Платформа, которая вот конкретно для промо-ивентов используется. Нет ничего такого.
Раньше RelaxBuy, наверное, использовался.
Ага.
Сейчас как не знаю.
А что-то, подождите, 34 mag or something? No?
It doesn't work now, so I guess that's they were closed because of the political events.
Understood. Okay, thanks. Yes, but there are generally such platforms, so I'm a little bit bummed. There are no platforms like this in Belarus, but okay. Event buzz. So event buzz is about generation of interest and excitement around your event, and this is up to you how you're gonna make it. You may invite a famous person or whatever. There are a lot of these, yeah. And also integrated risk planning and crisis management. So those criteria are a must. Now moving on to recommended criteria. So those are not really, it's not like needed. I would say they are needed. They're just not a must, but they would greatly improve the chances of your event succeeding. So the first one is teaser. Well, everybody understands what a teaser is, right? So some sort of, so something interesting is gonna happen, yada, yada, yada. Content marketing and storytelling, online community engagement and management. Yeah, especially if it is a big event, there's going to be lots of people have lots of questions, etc., etc. So this is an important component. Yeah, but it really depends on an event. Speaker press. So those are interviews beforehand. Testimonials and reviews. If this is not the first event of the series, it is a series of events. Maybe people participated in previous events, so you can share the testimonials and reviews. And finally, connections with industry and opinion leaders and influencers. So now talking about three important things: pitch, press release, and press conference. So pitch. Just let me take a short water break. So pitch. Pitch is sent for influencers or journalists and is again something that I am asking you for your press conference, for your upcoming assignment. So pitch, it's a short around 200 words email or message that presents your brand in a positive light. That's one. And two, it offers the recipient some value. So the key point of the pitch is first and foremost to identify the right person to send the pitch to. Yeah, so your person has to do something with the event. It cannot be a random person. If you pick an influencer, it has to be an influencer that corresponds with your brand. Thankfully, lots of you have already come up with influencers you'll be collaborating in, well, within the course, obviously. Then you show your interest in them. Yeah, and you do this by referring what they do. So writing something like, I really appreciate your this and that, or because you do this and that, I think you might be interested in something we have to offer. Another important thing, again, it's only 200 words, up to 200 words. It can be slightly longer, but it shouldn't be very long. It has to, be just straight to the point. And that's why you need to be brief and concise and focus on two important things. What? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. It just said that it's the power level. Okay. It just tells me that my computer is going. I guess yeah, we were about to finish it. That's fine. If I disappear suddenly, just know that my my battery, the battery of my computer went flat. I have only 10% or whatever. Yeah. So focus on interest and focus on value. If it's an email, make sure the subject line grabs attention. This is a very, very common mistake from previous year students. For example, they write a pitch and the headline, the subject line is no subject. Yeah? То есть, в принципе, это очень важно. Вы когда будете кому-то письма высылать, обязательно обратите внимание на subject line. Потому что, работникам медиа огромное количество писем в день приходят, и вот эти вот без subject lines, они, во-первых, выглядят как спам, во-вторых, их никто не читает, потому что они, they don't say anything. So make sure you have this, subject line filled. Also, if addressed to a journalist, give links to your website or your socials because you might also get a mention or a backlink. So this is what concerns a pitch. Now moving on to the press release. So press release is also a variation of writing in PR. It is a key piece of writing which is sent to media with the purpose of announcing news, events, or other information of public interest. And typically, when we talk about the structure of the press release, we use as an example, we use as a reference the structure of the inverted pyramid. So first and foremost, you start with the heading that grabs attention. Yeah, so you have the heading, then you have date and place, and then you have your company. Yeah, the name of your company. And then you move on to the biggest part, which is known as 5 W's. What's happening, when it's happening, why it's happening, who's in charge, and where is it happening. То есть костяк всего, да, всей новости. Где, кто, когда, etc., etc. This is the first paragraph. Then you move on to the next paragraph, or it could be more than one paragraph. It doesn't matter whatsoever. Just do what looks good and what feels good here. You add secondary details, such as quotes, for example. And here, every year students write something. So by quotes, I don't mean like philosophical quotes of something. Потому что студенты начинают писать, как писал Ницше, что не убивает, делает нас сильнее. Нет, про другие цитаты вообще идет речь. Тут идет идет речь о цитатах, например, CEO, да, директора компании, или какого-то эксперта, какого-то специалиста, то есть человека, который... So the idea of the quote is to give the credibility, да, придать еще больше валидности вашему сообщению. And other details in descending order of importance. So basically, опять же, что нужно понимать про пресс-релиз, важная информация, она должна быть в самом начале сконцентрирована, да? То есть журналист или издание он должен увидеть ваш пресс-релиз, и уже по первому параграфу вы должен понять, что это что-то интересное. Вы его должны сразу зацепить. Yeah, that's why I'm talking about the heading that grabs attention, and that's why all the most important information is concentrated here in the first part. And then additional info. So here you add photos, links, infographics, etc., which also increases your chances of getting picked. Now, press conference. Press conference is a media event whose aim is to disseminate information on a particular topic. It's composed of two parts. The main part, during which speakers present their topics, and a follow-up. So during a follow-up, journalists ask you questions, and you have to present your client or brand in the best possible light, yet make sure you're informative, persuasive, and respectful. Also make sure to feed, so here I'm using inverted commas because this is not, not in a literal sense, to feed the journalist information you want to get covered. And another thing that is important, make sure you prepare for the questions. Yes, in PR you have a saying, what goes around comes around. То есть если с вашей компанией связаны какие-то скандалы или есть какие-то такие интересные моменты, what goes around comes around means, то есть это значит, что это обязательно всплывет рано или поздно. Поэтому лучше готовиться к этому заранее. So, finally, spin. So you can take a look at spinning. This is ethical spinning. About selection of information. So here are some tips how to talk like a PR specialist. And since we are running out of time, I would just like to sum up that we still need to practice with your ethical PR, and ethical PR principles adhere to 8Cs model, also the requirements of transparency, honesty, and accuracy, right? And before we finish, я хочу сказать, что на следующем занятии у нас, следующий семинар будет консультация смотрите, как я идеально 20 минут закончил. Консультация по промежуточному заданию, контент-плану и по мидтерму. Поэтому, те, кто могут, подключайтесь. Я думаю, мы не будем с вами весь семинар сидеть. И я думаю, что еще предложу к вам подключиться очникам. Вот. То есть просмотреть промежуточное задание, interim assignment, content plan. И, про мидтерм я говорил, но еще отдельно скажу во время консультации. То есть, по сути, это будут офисные часы, во время которых я буду консультировать. И вообще любые вопросы по курсу тоже сможете задать на следующем занятии. Окей?
Можно уточнить сразу. Вот этот контент-план — это промежуточное, но это не к вот этому пресс-релизу?
Нет, это семинар будет, Олесь. Это отдельно после каникул у нас семинар будет, да. Да, Полин.
Я хотела сказать то, что у меня не получится подключиться к следующему занятию, которое будет 15 числа, потому что я буду ехать из Вильнюса, и, скорее всего, у меня вообще не будет никак получаться. Вот, подскажите по поводу этого задания, то есть я могу его загрузить, да, но мы же его как-то и презентовать, наверное, должны, да?
Да, вы конкретно про это. Но смотрите, я, в принципе, советую, чтобы от группы хотя бы один человек был. Но это как минимум, потому что, вы потом что-то не услышите, что-то не узнаете, потом будете меня винить, а виноват кто?
С ребятами это обсудить, то есть в этом проблем как бы...
Так это, Полина, это следующее задание, это будет после каникул, это будет наш первый семинар после каникул, получается, вот этот вот пресс-конференция, пресс-конференц, боже, у меня один язык на другой, English and Russian. Хорошо, сейчас сфокусируемся. Русский язык. Будет пресс-конференция, а на следующем семинаре после каникул мы уже с вами будем сдавать мидтерм, то есть тест. Про тест я тоже скажу отдельно во время консультации.
Все, поняла, спасибо большое.
Пожалуйста. Ой, ну давайте еще.
Я немного запуталась, извините, да. Получается, пресс-релиз мы делаем после Нового года или это к следующему?
Да.
После.
К следующему занятию ничего готовить, ну, не то, что ничего готовить, к следующему занятию давайте, да, корректнее сформулирую. Посмотрите interim assignment описание, и по тесту я отдельно дам информацию по мидтерму.
И еще там же можно будет на на следующий 19 числа проконсультироваться по промежуточному заданию, которое контент-план.
Да, это как раз вот я вам и предлагаю промежуточного описания посмотреть, чтобы вы, ну, мне все равно, ну, на самом деле я буду с этого начинать. Я просто открою описание задания и буду его комментировать.
Окей, все,
Вот,
теперь
да.
нормально.